This is going to be your guide to the top 10 Mega Pokemon in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Now, Megas are the most important Pokemon on anyone's team because you can take one and only one Pokemon and push its stats to the limit and do some pretty crazy stuff with it. Now, in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, there's been some pretty drastic changes. No items, no abilities. Makes things a little weird, but it means you can Mega any Pokemon at any time on your team, and some Pokemon like Charizard and Mewtwo, you can put them in either of their forms and not be limited to a held item. So that makes the dynamic pretty crazy. Now, before we get into the list, I do want to remind you guys that if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, share it on social media, and just comment down below. I want to know your thoughts because Megas are pretty interesting when it comes to these games. Now, before we get into the top 10, I want to just kind of make a note of the Pokemon that aren't on the list. There's only 13 species of Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, and I'm not putting Mewtwo because legendaries, they always make things a little complicated when it comes to Pokemon, so on any of my top 10 lists, I don't include the legendaries, and then that just leaves us with the other two, Mega Slowbro and Mega Blastoise. I feel like Slowbro, even though it's super bulky, just a little too slow, has a good amount of weaknesses, it ends up getting exploited before it does anything crazy, and Blastoise, while it has a lot of really good well-rounded stats and decent coverage, unfortunately you only get one Mega, so it's probably better spent elsewhere depending on your team, and also when you compare it to Pokemon like Mega Gyarados, which obviously makes the list, Mega Blastoise just doesn't feel as satisfying. So number 10, Charizard. Charizard feels like it should be a lot stronger in Pokemon Let's Go because it can split at any time. You can either go all in on special attacks or you can go mixed on Charizard X, and you can keep your opponent guessing throughout the way. Biggest problem though, it doesn't get Dragon Dance, it doesn't get Belly Drum, so a lot of its sweeping threat has been removed in Pokemon Let's Go, which means we're effectively just left with some good stats. You know, starter Pokemon gaining 100 to the base stats, that's alright, but it doesn't have anything exceptional on the speed, you know, it doesn't get any speed boost, which is notable from Charizard, even going back to Pokemon X and Y when Megas were introduced. Has a really high special attack, but Megas do get really high stats, so we can really see that without having the Sunny Day on the Charizard Y, without having the insane stat boosting into sweeping on the Charizard X, there really isn't as much power loaded into these Pokemon, but remember, since all Megas lose their abilities, there is a give and take here. I just feel Charizard was hit by it pretty hard, but at the end of the day, decently fast Pokemon, good amounts of damage, alright coverage, you can find some use on it, and you have at least a little bit of advantage by keeping your opponent guessing on the typing, so you don't immediately get read into a Rock Slide or an Earthquake, so at least like it buys you a turn to then show your hand, do something, then you get to play it out from there. Number 9, Mega Pinsir. Now, to really understand Pinsir in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I think we just have to look at everything that it has access to, and we can start with these stats. So 155 attack, so again, just showing a raw amount of power instantly. 120 defense is surprisingly bulky with that 90 special defense, so it's going to stay on the field for a good amount of time, so there's no item snowballing, no damage snowballing on abilities. Other Pokemon are generally weaker and might not be able to coverage out against you, so that's alright, but only a 105 on the speed. So you will eventually get exploited, and 155 attack, unless you're hitting super effective hits, is also not going to nuke out any Pokemon, but you do get good coverage. The Earthquake, kind of mandatory staple in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and at least Pinsir has it to add something to its kit for coverage and damage. X-Scissor, Brick Break, Bulk Up, so it can get really bulky on that Bulk Up, just make it to where defensive Pokemon can't really knock it down that easy, gets extra damage on top of that, and then you just kind of start landing hits. The thing is, again, you just get outsped, so if the opponent has a couple of sweepers, a bulky Pokemon that can take a hit, Pinsir's just going to get kind of whittled away, and that's all there is to it. Also, looking at the moveset, it kind of just boils down to, yeah, it doesn't get Aerialate, so it can't, like, go into any, like, double-edge insane damage. Also, no Quick Attack, so there's no priority on the Pinsir, can't make up for, like, any little bit of finishing damage. It does have Swords Dance, it can do some other things, but also no Roost. So without Roost, doesn't have any opportunity to sustain, can get exploited that way, and eventually it's just going to maybe set up a little bit, do a lot of damage, but it's not going to have massive staying power, not going to have massive sweeping power, but it is still pretty strong. That against the right teams, in the right state of the games, Pinsir can take over, so I'm definitely not counting out its sweeping ability. And I think that's what makes this list so weird, and also I want your guys' thoughts about it. I feel like Pokemon's 10 through 6 are effectively in the same boat. They have the same amount of potential for damage, they have the same amount of potential for usability, they have the same amount of potential for taking over games, and you can use them. They're still successful, but they have a lot of drawbacks. They don't have outright just dunking power on an entire team, but they still are pretty solid. So Pinsir, no, it's not a bad Pokemon because it's number 9, definitely very usable, and can definitely do some pretty scary stuff. Number 8, Mega Pidgeot. And that's mostly going to be because of the speed. Like, you're thinking, wait, Mega Pidgeot, it doesn't do anything in Let's Go, right? But I mean, I think it's just going to boil down to the speed, that the more sweep you can get on this Pokemon, that we're going to see that what Megas do in Let's Go is it makes to where Pokemon becomes faster than normal. It makes to where it outspeeds almost everything else in the game. So Pidgeot sitting at a 121 speed, that's really good, because now it's outspeeding Alakazam. You can get finishing damage onto an Alakazam, or you can just trade really well with an Alakazam as well, because Psychic isn't going to one-shot you. So you have that going for you, and then you can also look at other Pokemon like Dugtrio. Dugtrio Rock Slide doesn't knock you out, 2 Air Slashes, that's going to take out the Dugtrio. So there's a lot of interesting like mechanics that can go on, and flying is just good. Now, technically Pinsir is flying, but having flying into a better speed option is nice because everything has Earthquake. So if you can mix it up with a Pidgeot, that's going to go really well. Pidgeot's coverage doesn't have a lot going for it, but it can roost on moderate bulk, and then it just kind of 3-shots everything on an Air Slash. If it's getting 3-hit KO'd itself, it can eventually heal back up on that Roost. Maybe even like play some mind games, use Roost to get rid of the flying weakness, so then a Thunderbolt or an otherwise super effective hit comes through. Pidgeot tanks out more hit points, can then do 2 shots on the Air Slash, has U-turn as well, so it plays a little bit of mind games. Venusaur is a pretty popular Pokemon. Parasect is getting a bit of usage because it has like the only Spore in the game, so that guaranteed sleep, and it just kind of like knocks down a lot of the decent threats while having good amounts of speed. If it ends up getting bulked out by a defensive typing or, you know, just a really heavy Pokemon, you can switch safely into another one. So Pidgeot just gives you some options that eventually grow throughout the battle, and a 135 special attack compared to a 155 on an offensive, or even like a 160, 170, doesn't really change too many things. So Pidgeot's just kind of going to sit there, has a good opportunity to maybe find a random flinch, and it just kind of works out. Number 7, Mega Beedrill. Mega Beedrill is aight. I thought it was going to be stronger, but again, like, you're just not one-shotting everything. You can land super effective hits, and it might not KO despite having an insane amount of attack, but you kind of need to run the Jolly Nature so you can outspeed everything, and that's what makes Beedrill so good. So Beedrill is only outsped by 3 Pokemon in the game. Also, sorry, I don't know why Photoshop like corrupted this one. I didn't save it as PSD. I just went straight to the PNG, but whatever. So it's only outsped by 3 Pokemon. And that's why it has a nice number 7, because it cleans up. It has good coverage. Mega Beedrill just works out pretty well. And, you know, when you look at the Pokemon that you're worried about, yeah, that can be kind of bad. You know, the Aerodactyl comes in, that has super effective hits. The Alakazam just wipes you off the face of the earth. That means they are using their Mega. So the Mega Beedrill is good for information. That if they Mega something other than their Alakazam, you get a free KO against that Alakazam at any point in the battle when you have the opportunity to. Same when it comes to the Electro. It's like, alright, Electro does alright against you. It doesn't do insane amounts, and, you know, it's just barely finding a little bit of an outspeed. Then you can come in and start cleaning up with more damage. But the thing about the Beedrill is that it's frail. It's eventually going to take on a lot of damage, so you have to use it at the right time in the battle, and you're just going to mostly rely on speed for cleaning up Pokemon. It's not going to be something that you can just kind of wreck on adaptability all day long. Some Pokemon can come in, just 1-hit KO it on a super effective hit. Has a good amount of weaknesses, that's definitely a possibility. Overall, Beedrill, it's solid. Another Pokemon solid, Mega Gengar. So Mega Gengar, again, I feel like all of these Pokemon, you know, Charizard through Gengar, the entire list at this point, kind of shuffle it up, and depending on the day, the Pokemon can be in any other place. But I'm going to put Mega Gengar here because Gengar gets a specific advantage by going into that Mega, and that's outspeeding regular Alakazam. Also, 130 speed tier is a very, very nice place to be in, and then it gains stats, you know, plus 20 defense, plus 20 special defense on the Mega actually means a lot in this game. That changes some 1-hit KOs around. It changes some 2-hit KOs around, especially for like adding in Giga Drain or some weird coverage and some stuff that ends up happening. And then the 170 special attack, that changes 3-hit KOs into 2-hit KOs in some situations. So what it does is it just makes Gengar more efficient. And the Mega Gengar can be scary. It doesn't have to have the Shadow Tag, it doesn't have to have the Perish Song to be a weird, mischievous little Pokemon, but it also has that good coverage that can run. So you get Stab Sludge Bomb, Stab Shadow Ball. You can go into the Psychic for other Poison type Pokemon, so against another Gengar, you know, you just Mega into it and you have advantage. So its Mega brings a lot of advantages that regular Gengar doesn't find, but at the same time, it doesn't dunk on every single Pokemon, doesn't have a lot of setup. Earthquake is still pretty bad, Sucker Punch is very exploitable on this, and yeah, eventually it's just going to take a lot of damage to get whittled down, but it does it better as the Mega, and then even then, 170 special attack. That's going to hurt. With its coverage, it's going to rip through some teams. So you have to respect that Gengar potential at any point. Also, another thing I want to show that, like, you just kind of adding on to these benefits, you know, Giga Drain with a regular Gengar doesn't one-shot a Dugtrio, and then you get outspeed and died to an Earthquake anyways. But Dugtrio is a fairly common Pokemon, at least a really solid Pokemon overall. So what it does is it shows this big shift that you get. You go into the Mega, and now you're looking at some pretty crazy stuff because you can Giga Drain, one-shot the Dugtrio, and things are going to go pretty good for you. So the game doesn't end immediately, and Gengar like kind of falls behind. You know, Starmie, random outspeed into a Psychic. There's like just some random things that regular Gengar gets abused by, not anymore as the Mega. Number 5, Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl doesn't do much in Pokemon Let's Go except one thing, have an unstoppable Stealth Rocks. So the reason why it's number 5 is because I don't respect Stealth Rocks that much. I think that if you throw away a Pokemon, you throw away a Mega, you give up anything for the Stealth Rocks, it can work for you, but it depends on the team. You know, for the most part, say a couple switches happen throughout the game, Stealth Rock averages, you know, 1/8 on a switch, maybe a quarter if there's a super effective in there, and some people might not be able to play those really weird switch mind games anymore, but for the most part, you're not going to get one Pokemon's worth of hit points out of that Stealth Rock compared to the setup that you're risking, compared to all of the other things that you're risking, and now you just gave up your Mega, you showed everything, and Aerodactyl outside of that is still pretty decent, but not in like a damaging, scary, sweepy kind of way. It has Crunch, Earthquake. That's going to be the primary coverage. Pretty much all of them are running that, but it's not going to really want to use any same type attack bonus. So the Aerodactyl stats aren't really going to get that much of a benefit. Like a 135 attack, non-stab, alright base power stuff. Even using a Stab Rock Slide isn't that great, but then you have to use the Stealth Rocks. Now what makes it cheeky is that it can Roost, it can Roar, it can Taunt, it can Substitute. If those things start coming in and it's the right mixture, I think that the Aerodactyl, it has to have that right mixture against the opponent. Sometimes Aerodactyl just doesn't get to do anything against the opponent, and that's just going to happen. It is the fastest Pokemon in the game, tied with Alakazam, tied with Electrode, so you're always going to come out and do something, but I don't think it has like a lot of scary power behind it. The scariest thing about the Aerodactyl is the Stealth Rocks, and I think the Stealth Rocks is a meh move. Sure, you can't remove it, but again, you have to give it up. Stealth Rocks doesn't, like, you don't Mega and then Stealth Rocks instantly hits field. You're giving up something at that point. Now it is for the unstoppable Stealth Rocks, and that's where the Aerodactyl finds benefit. The other things that it can do, can roar out some setup, it can taunt some setup, it can Roost to be just a little more frustrating, because it does have Bolt. You can't just one-shot a Mega Aerodactyl at will, but then its damage isn't anything scary to worry about either. So you can set up against it with like an Eevee, you know, you can get your screens up, you can seed it, you can paralyze it, you can status it. If it gets burned, it's useless. So a lot of Pokemon that fall in that realm, it's like, yeah, you can make an Aerodactyl useless really easily, and now they don't have a Mega, so if you get more benefit out of your Mega, then that's just going to be great, but something to respect at the same time. So that's why I think it's perfect. It's like this, it's this 50-50 Pokemon. It's alright for the Megas, so it's going to be number 5. Number 4, Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur has always been terrifying because of those stats. Like, you look at it, 80 on the hit points, fair. 123 defense, 122 special attack, 120 special defense. This thing tanks. This thing hurts. This thing does it all. It has an 80 speed, so even like a lot of the other bulky Pokemon, you just outspeed. Like, you do get outsped by a lot. Sweep is pretty powerful, as I've been showing throughout, like, you know, oh, why is Pidgeot better than the Pinsir? Because speed. Why is Mega Gengar better? Because speed. You know, the speed is very important. So Venusaur being a tanky Pokemon, if it has an 80, that's going to be very happy on the Venusaur. And the thing is, without EVs, I feel Venusaur benefits the most, because it wants to be an attacker, and it also wants to be a defensive Pokemon, and it doesn't have to split. You know, you're not having to, like, overinvest in defense and then lack on damage somewhere. All the other Pokemon are the same. So a 122 raw special attack that's higher than most of the Pokemon in the game, for free, that's pretty good. Also, the difference between a 122 and a 130 something, not really that much. So Venusaur is just going to come in and then be consistent damage while being something very difficult to kill. And it has, you know, it has like the holy, not even trinity, just the holy quadfecta. I just made up a move to explain this Pokemon's glory. Mega Drain, Sustain. It didn't get Synthesis, you know, like Sustain is a very golden thing in this game. So Mega Drain exists. That's going to be good Sustain. Leech Seed. If you're not going against grass-type Pokemon, now this Pokemon isn't going anywhere. Leech Seed, Mega Drain, you eventually just wear down a Pokemon, and then you're still sitting at like 70-60% after that, and you can just rinse, repeat. Sleep Powder. Anytime you can just put an opponent's Pokemon sleep, Venusaurs take the gamble, usually pays off, and then you just wreck from there. Sludge Bomb gives you neutral coverage against other Venusaur. Victory Bell has super effective hits against grass types, just kind of cleans up whatever the Mega Drain can't take out. But overall, you just like sit behind the Leech Seed. You put the opponents to sleep, just wear them down, and then you're just going to be bulky. do have to worry about some of the common Pokemon, like Alakazam. That speedy Psychic, gonna suck. Gengar, that speedy Psychic, gonna suck. There's a lot of things that make it hard for the Venusaur, but if you remove that threat, or you just kind of bring it in there to halt an opponent, it can do that. And Venusaur doesn't care about losing, you know, the thick fat, because it can endure super effective hits. There's no items, there's no abilities, there's no EVs. All the Pokemon are sitting at roughly half damage anyways, so now Venusaur is finding more advantage in the other typings that aren't just Fire and Ice. It's good, and I hate going up against it. Maybe a little bit biased, but I think it's also fair to put it at 4. Number 3, Mega Gyarados. Maybe another biased Pokemon. Whenever I see one of these things, I get very worried. Might not be just me, because look at those stats. 95 hit points, 109 defense, 130 special defense, 81 speed. So actually it's faster than the Venusaur, barely, which can help it in some certain situations. And then it also still has just disgusting amounts of bulk, and then a disgusting amount of attack. So yeah, you go Adamant Nature, and there's no compromises. You're already compounding an insane attack, you get really good defenses, and then, again, as we just kind of talked about with Venusaur and that speed, it works. And also, it's a Water-type Pokemon. There aren't a lot of crazy Water-type Pokemon in this game. So Gyarados adds that to your team. You know, Gyarados just kind of comes in, like, yes, it can be overswept, it can be taken over at some point, but if you don't have a very sweep-heavy team, or if your sweeper's already weakened, you know, you're going to spin all of your sweepers to outspeed, chip away at the Gyarados, and then get one shot on super effective hit, or just take a lot of damage, and then still not make any progress, because the thing is so darn bulky. You know, Gyarados is just nasty like that. Its coverage isn't anything too ridiculous, but you can just run all offensive, or maybe pack a taunt in there or something. So Crunch, Earthquake, Dragon Tail. So if you're setting up, if you're trying to get cheeky against Gyarados, it doesn't let you do that. You're just Dragon Tailed away, Waterfall. So its stab is very usable, and then Earthquake. So it has very potent dual stab and Earthquake on a 155 attack while being unkillable. Mega Gyarados is good. Number 2 on the list, though, is going to be the Mega Kangaskhan. I found it funny that when Pokemon Let's Go was announced to have no items abilities, people were like, oh, Mega Kangaskhan's dead. And I thought, no, Mega Kangaskhan is going to thrive in this. That it already was pretty bad with Parental Bond nerf, and when you compare it to other Pokemon, it's like, oh, you just choice band with another fast Pokemon, and then you have more damage than the Kangaskhan now anyways. And Kangaskhan also lost like a good amount of coverage. It doesn't get Drain Punch anymore. Power Up Punch was dead for a while now, but it's still solid because 105 hit points, 100 defense, 100 special defense, and its only weakness is fighting, and fighting isn't that common in Pokemon Let's Go, so you can't even exploit the Mega Kangaskhan. It just sits there as a ton of stats on good speed, good everything, and then the 60 special attack doesn't matter. So all of its stats are getting pretty optimal usage overall, and its coverage is Elemental Punches. So you can rock those and have some great stuff. It gets the Earthquake, it has Fake Out as Sucker Punch, so it's dual priority, and then everything else it outspeeds, it gets good coverage and damage against. So you just come in, Fake Out, boom. 30 opponent's Pokemon health is gone right there. Sucker Punch. Again, you can just like Sucker Punch everything down, especially like a faster Pokemon like the Alakazam. Hit it with an Earthquake, hit it with a Sucker Punch. It's gone. Same with the Gengar. You can play some games with it, but that Earthquake is always threatening. And like, yeah, it just works against a lot of Pokemon. It can take a hit from Jolteon, not care about it, then Earthquake one-shot it. It can take a hit from a lot of Pokemon, not care about it, and then Earthquake, Sucker Punch. That could be a one-hit KO. It can just double Earthquake. It can just add up. Pretty much the thing about Kangaskhan is it's always doing more damage to you. It threatens priority, and it just doesn't care about what's happening to it. This has been one of my most important Pokemon. This has been one of the backbones of my team because you can just kind of rely on the Kangaskhan for that Fake Out. You switch out, you know, you Fake Out Sucker Punch, maybe take a hit. You just Fake Out Earthquake Sucker Punch, you combo down an entire Pokemon, or you just kind of keep cycling it out. You know, Fake Out, go into another Pokemon, set up some screens, that Pokemon faints, now Kangaskhan's under screens, gets another free Fake Out, starts slapping around some moves, and then you're going to be good to go. So, Kangaskhan, very dangerous. Don't let anyone say otherwise. I think it's number 2 because it's reliability in how, once you get to that late game, if you preserved your Kangaskhan, even if you haven't really too much, it can just really kind of disrupt the opponent's last 3 Pokemon if they're already weakened. If they're already in that state, it's like Earthquake, Sucker Punch, after a Fake Out, maybe there's an outspeed in there, maybe there's a super effective hit, and now Kangaskhan just took out 3 Pokemon because it's that good. But let me get to number 1, and I hate it. I was predicting early on that Mega Alakazam would not be the number 1 Pokemon in Let's Go. Because you can, you know, no items, no abilities. Mega Alakazam's not great. But here's like the weird thing. You know, people in Generation 1, like, oh, Psychic's busted, Alakazam's the best Pokemon, can't play, unplayable game. Now, I completely disagree with, like, that whole Generation 1, bad competitive sentiment that people have randomly just kind of thrown out there without thinking about the games. But when it comes to Alakazam, Gen 6 Mega Alakazam didn't get a lot of usage. All the power creep from Gen 5 onwards made Alakazam useless. Mega Alakazam Gen 7 even less useful because of all the new Pokemon. So I think it's great that Alakazam is very usable in Let's Go, but not for the reason that you think. You know, Mega Alakazam being the best Pokemon, or at least the best, actually, yeah, the best Pokemon in the game, the best Mega Pokemon, isn't because, you know, oh, that speedy Psychic, it being the fastest Pokemon in the game is good. It's just because of the moves. It gets access to moves that few Pokemon have, it's just Sustain, so it gets Recover. Alright. But it's also the fastest Pokemon has Barrier, which means its 40 defense, which is usually exploitable, means you can double your defense before the opponent hits you. And if you're going up against a special attacker, you can just like Calm Mind. So that's all it is. It just Calm Mind, Recover Barrier. That's the only thing that makes it broken under Speed, because you're just make it to where the opponent is dealing half damage against you, or it's dealing 66% damage against you on that first Calm Mind, and none of the moves are going to stick because you just recover it away. So if you just set up Alakazam right, you can last move the Psychic, and if they don't have any Dark-type Pokemon left on the team, it's very difficult to deal with. Yeah, you can Taunt it, yeah, you can Roar it, but depending on how the Alakazam is playing, if it's working with that stuff, it's like, cool. Alakazam is sitting at 80% hit points, plus 2 Barrier, or maybe plus 4 Barrier, plus 2 Calm Mind. Its Psychics, the Pokemon that's using Roar or Dragon Tail, does an insane amount of damage, it gets swapped out, well, now you still have to deal with the same 80% Alakazam. Yeah, Sucker Punch can come through, but since it has all these options like Barrier, Calm Mind, Recover, it can PP stall the Sucker Punch, or it can just set up enough barriers to where Sucker Punch doesn't matter anymore. Depending on how many Calm Minds the Alakazam is set up, you can keep trying to whittle away at it, but it'll eventually just out-recover you. So you need to like have a full team effort of like Taunt after you Roar it, so it's trying to reset up, and it can't recover, and you try to 3-shot it, so it can't do anything, but that Psychic still hurts because, you know, you don't have any EV investment, so it's not like you're splitting in hit points or defenses, you're always doing full Psychic damage under that Timid nature, as any other Mega Alakazam would, but it's just because you can set it up like that it makes it so scary. So yeah, I feel like that you know, Pokemon Let's Go competitive is incredibly balanced, so much good going for it, that Mega Alakazam scares me. I consider it the best Pokemon because, like, you remove Darks, and that's it. Done. GG. Mega Alakazam wins. It's unstoppable. It's too good. That's what I have to say. So, guys, enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Those are the top 10 Mega Pokemon in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Thank you very much for watching.